Chapter 1. The Deal. The day I purchased the Outpost was nothing extraordinary. I had received the listing like any other, tucked between messages from manufacturers, potential buyers, and corporate sponsors who never seemed to stop emailing me. On the surface, the offer seemed like nothing more than a dusty relic of the past, an abandoned alien outpost floating in the deep void of space, as remote and forgotten as the ruins of long-dead civilizations. But there was something about this particular deal that gnawed at me, something that kept pulling my attention back to the details hidden within the sales pitch. It was the price, for one thing. A steal, really. Sure, it had its problems. Who wouldn't expect that from a facility that had been untouched for 200 years? The Outpost, designated X-423, had been abandoned after the final transmission from its crew had been sent out. No one knew for sure why it had been left behind, but rumors and speculations had floated through the darker corners of the galaxy, like shadows in the deep. There were whispers of strange occurrences, of malfunctioning systems that no one could explain, and of strange signals intercepted from somewhere deep within the station. But these were just rumors, right? Nothing concrete. Nothing to worry about. At least, that's what I told myself when I transferred the credits into the account of the seller, an untraceable figure who had listed the Outpost on the market for practically nothing. To me, it seemed like a great investment. Maybe there was something valuable buried in the remains of the facility, alien tech, forgotten artifacts, something with enough value to make the entire purchase worthwhile. I wasn't in this for sentimental reasons or to explore history. I was in it for the profits. After all, who wouldn't want a forgotten piece of alien real estate? It had all the potential of a gold mine if I could figure out how to bring it back to life. The journey out to the Outpost was uneventful. I had the coordinates punched into the ship's navigation system, and I let the autopilot do most of the work. The vastness of space, the quiet hum of the engines, and the endless stars outside my window always had a calming effect on me. It was the kind of peace I craved, a sort of solitude that came with the deep isolation of being far from civilization. But this trip felt different. There was an underlying current of tension in the air that I couldn't quite explain. Maybe it was the haunting nature of the Outpost, the fact that it had been left alone for so long. Maybe it was the lack of information, the gaps in the history of the station that seemed to beg for an answer. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I could feel something pulling at me, like a distant voice calling in the dark. When I finally arrived at X-423, it looked just like I'd imagined it would. The station was nestled in a deep pocket of space, surrounded by a swirling nebula that bathed everything in a muted, eerie glow. The Outpost itself was a massive, cylindrical structure with jagged edges, where it had clearly taken damage over the years. The once sleek surface was covered in pitted scars, the result of meteorite impacts and the wear of countless years in space. Its exterior gleamed faintly in the nebula's light, and the once functional docking ports were now long abandoned. The access hatches rusted and immovable. The first thing that struck me as I approached the Outpost was how silent it was. Even though I had entered the station's proximity, there were no signals, no automated communications, not a single message to acknowledge my arrival. Just the cold, empty silence of space. I docked my ship with a slow, deliberate motion, letting the autolocks catch the hull of my vessel with a soft, metallic clang. I couldn't help but notice how the station seemed to loom around me, its immense size both awe-inspiring and oppressive. I had read the reports the Outpost was well equipped with systems that were supposed to have kept it functional for much longer than it had been. But there was nothing, only a deep emptiness that hung over the place like a cloud. No energy readings, no sign of life, no life support systems whirring to life as I entered. Everything was dormant. As I set foot inside the station's main airlock, the first thing I noticed was the cold. It wasn't the kind of chill you'd expect from a place without active heating systems, though. It was an unsettling cold, like a presence lingering in the air, something not quite right. The metal corridors stretched out before me in perfect symmetry, and every step I took seemed to echo through the vast hallways, amplified by the stillness around me. The station's design was clearly not of human origin. Smooth curves, strange geometric angles, and massive windows that offered a view of the nebula outside, but no visible stars. It was alien in every sense of the word. I moved through the hallway slowly, unsure of where to begin. The station's systems were clearly offline, but there had to be something here, something to explain why it had been abandoned so suddenly. The main control room was located at the heart of the outpost, and I made my way toward it, my boots clicking softly against the metal floor. The door to the control room slid open with a hiss, but the sight that greeted me wasn't what I'd expected. The room, though vast and imposing, was eerily pristine, as if nothing had been touched since the last time someone had been here. The consoles and terminals were dark, their once vibrant screens now dull and unresponsive. But there, tucked beneath a pile of discarded equipment, I found something that made my heart skip a beat. It was a small compartment, an old maintenance unit, sealed with alien symbols that I couldn't read. The compartment was half-hidden, buried beneath cables and wires that had long since stopped functioning. But as I pried it open, I found a small, unassuming object. A ring, made of some dark, unknown metal that shimmered with a subtle, almost ethereal glow. It wasn't like anything I had ever seen before. The ring was simple in design, yet it felt significant. The moment I touched it, I felt a strange pulse of energy ripple through my fingertips. It wasn't a shock, but something much more subtle, something that resonated deep within me. As I picked it up, the faint hum in the air grew louder, as if the ring was alive, attuned to something just out of reach. I slipped it onto my finger instinctively, as if the ring had been made for me. As soon as it touched my skin, everything changed. The air around me seemed to shift, the cold that had settled in the room intensifying for just a moment before settling into an unfamiliar warmth. The symbols on the ring began to glow softly, flickering like distant stars, and for the first time since I had arrived, I felt a presence, a consciousness, almost as if something ancient and powerful was watching me. The moment passed quickly, and the room returned to its previous stillness. But the energy had not. I felt it deep within me, a connection, a pull, as though the ring was beckoning me towards something I couldn't yet see. The whispers of ancient voices filled the air, barely audible, like a distant hum that tickled the back of my mind. I didn't know what the ring was, nor what it was capable of, but I knew one thing for certain. I had just stumbled upon something far greater than I had anticipated, something that could change everything. The room, once so empty and silent, now felt alive, as though the station itself was waking up. And with the ring on my finger, I could feel the pull of something much larger than the outpost itself, a secret waiting to be uncovered, a hidden alliance that had been waiting for someone to find it. I didn't know what it all meant yet, but I had a feeling that this was only the beginning. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze time, the air, even the ship outside the station. I stood there, holding the ring, feeling the pulse of energy reverberating through me. It wasn't the kind of energy I was used to, no hum from engines, no flicker of a power source. This was something older, something ancient. The hum in the air grew louder, resonating within the very walls of the outpost, as if the entire structure was coming alive, reacting to my presence, to the ring on my finger. My heartbeat quickened, and I suddenly felt the weight of my decision. I hadn't come here for this. I wasn't prepared for what this outpost had hidden. I quickly moved to a nearby console, hoping to find anything that could explain what was happening. The screen flickered to life, displaying symbols I couldn't read. I fumbled through the interface, trying to establish some kind of connection to the station's databases, but it was like trying to communicate with a broken language. The station's systems were still offline, and without the right access codes, there was nothing I could do to gain more information. But then, as if responding to my frustration, the console pulsed once, twice, and a small section of the display blinked to life. An image appeared on the screen. It wasn't a map of the station or a schematic of the systems, it was a symbol. The same symbol that appeared on the ring. My heart skipped a beat. The image slowly rotated, and I could make out intricate, flowing lines, a design that seemed both alien and familiar. There was a pattern within the symbol, something that spoke to me in a way I couldn't explain. I knew, deep down, that this symbol was important. But what did it mean? A soft clicking sound interrupted my thoughts, and I turned sharply, my hand instinctively moving to the sidearm holstered at my waist. The room was still, but something in the air had shifted again. The faint glow from the ring pulsed once more, its energy somehow entwining with the low hum of the station. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine as the sense of being watched returned. "Is someone there?" I called out, but there was no response. Only silence. It was strange. I'd been in plenty of abandoned stations before, but this felt different. The oppressive silence wasn't just the result of isolation. It was something else. The console flickered again, and the same symbol flashed on the screen, this time followed by a single line of text. The Alliance is awakening. The time has come. My stomach dropped. I hadn't expected this, not in 1,000 years. The Alliance? What was this? The message seemed to be meant for someone, not for me, a message encoded in an ancient alien language, designed to be found at the right moment. The problem was, I had no idea what this alliance was or how it connected to the outpost, the ring, or whatever was hidden here. I looked down at the ring, still glowing softly, still warm against my skin. It was no longer just an artifact or a piece of alien jewelry. It was the key to something far bigger. A secret, a mystery that had been buried for centuries. And now I was the one who had stumbled upon it. The weight of that responsibility began to settle in my chest. I had bought this outpost for a simple investment, something to restore and flip for profit. Instead, I had found a hidden alliance, a long-forgotten network of power that stretched far beyond the station's walls. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. Chapter 2: The Hidden Truth. The next few hours were a blur of frenzied exploration. The outpost was far from what I had expected, far more than an abandoned relic with a few discarded machines and equipment. It was as if the station had been designed to keep something hidden, to protect something important. I spent hours combing through the maintenance halls and the control rooms, searching for anything that might explain the meaning of the message, the symbol, or the alliance. But the station was not as empty as it first appeared. Small clues began to surface, hidden messages, codes buried deep within the systems, each one leading me further down a path I hadn't expected to take. I found more symbols on the walls, etched into the metal as if they had been scratched in by desperate hands. These weren't just alien markings, they were part of a language, a communication system used by an unknown race. I couldn't decipher most of it, but the symbols were unmistakable. They matched the markings on the ring, the ones I had felt stir with energy when I first touched it. Something was coming alive within me as well, an instinct to understand, to uncover the layers of mystery wrapped around the outpost. I wasn't sure if it was the ring's influence or if I was simply drawn to the allure of discovering something lost, but the deeper I delved, the more I felt like I was being pulled into something far greater than I had ever imagined. As I wandered deeper into the bowels of the outpost, I finally reached what appeared to be the central chamber, a massive, circular room, its walls lined with ancient panels that glowed faintly with an otherworldly light. The floor was etched with more of those same symbols, forming a labyrinthine pattern that seemed to pulse with an energy I couldn't explain. At the center of the room stood a large pedestal, and upon it, nestled perfectly within a hollow indentation, was a device large, angular, and covered in the same symbols as the ring. I approached cautiously, my pulse quickening with each step. This was at the heart of the station. The device before me was no ordinary machine. It was alive, pulsating with energy, and as I reached out to touch it, I felt the same surge of power that had come from the ring. The two seemed to resonate in perfect harmony. When I placed the ring into the device, something incredible happened. The walls of the chamber lit up, a holographic map of the stars and planets unfolding before me, outlining an ancient alliance that had long since disappeared from the history books. The map showed routes, connections, and hidden outposts scattered across the galaxy, and at the center of it all was a planet I had never seen before. The symbol on the map was identical to the one on the ring. The alliance wasn't just a myth, it was real, and it had been waiting for someone to find it. I stared at the map, my mind racing. The alliance had been hidden for centuries, its secrets buried away from the galaxy's prying eyes. But now, somehow, I had uncovered it. What did this mean? Who had created it? And more importantly, what was my role in all of this? The holographic map flickered, and the image of the planet at the center of the galaxy glowed brightly. It was as if the outpost itself was trying to communicate with me, trying to show me the next step. A hidden alliance, a lost civilization, and an unimaginable power all within my reach. But why had they left it all behind? Why had the outpost been abandoned so suddenly? And why had the message appeared now, just as I had stepped foot into the outpost? I had no answers yet, but I knew one thing for certain: this was just the beginning. The ring had unlocked something much bigger than I had ever expected, and now, the hunt for the truth had begun. The holographic map before me was mesmerizing, its edges glowing faintly as it highlighted specific locations scattered across the galaxy. Some were near the farthest reaches of known space, and others were hidden deep within uncharted nebulae, where few had ventured. Each location was tied to the mysterious alliance, a network that had once held immense power. But what had happened to it? Why had it faded into obscurity, leaving behind only remnants of its existence, buried under layers of time and cosmic dust? The ring I wore on my finger, now pulsing faintly in sync with the device, seemed to beckon me, urging me to take the next step. There had to be something more to this, something bigger at play. I could feel it, a presence, an echo of something ancient. The outpost had been built for a purpose, and I had only scratched the surface. The longer I stood there, staring at the map, the more I realized how little I knew. I hadn't come here for a treasure hunt, yet that was precisely what I had stumbled into. My mind raced with questions. The symbols on the map, the connections between the planets, the strange device before me, it all pointed to a hidden history, one that had been deliberately erased. But why? And what role did I play in all of this? The message I had received earlier, the one about the Alliance awakening, wasn't just a vague transmission. It was a warning, a call to action. Whoever or whatever had left it behind had been expecting someone to find it. They knew I would come. I reached out to touch the map, and the moment my fingers made contact with the holographic display, a new image appeared, a dark, circular object orbiting a distant star. It looked like a black hole, but its edges were clearly defined, as if something was contained within it. The map zoomed in, and for a brief moment, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A structure, hidden within the blackness of the object, something unmistakably artificial. It was not a natural formation. I had never seen anything like it. It was a massive, spherical station, floating within the event horizon of the black hole, its dark surface covered in the same alien symbols. The device in front of me began to hum, its glow intensifying, and the map slowly shifted, locking onto the location of the station. The message was clear now. This was the heart of the Alliance, the key to understanding everything. But why was it hidden there? Why in such an extreme location, surrounded by the very forces of nature that could tear any ship to pieces? A black hole was the last place anyone would want to build something. And yet, there it was, a signpost to the forgotten heart of a galactic power. Before I could process it further, a deep voice reverberated through the room, booming from nowhere and everywhere at once. You have found us, but you are not the first. The others failed. Will you succeed? I spun around, my heart racing, but there was no one there. The voice had not come from any visible source. The walls remained as silent as they had been for centuries. The room was empty, save for the pulsating device and the glowing map. The voice was gone as quickly as it had come, but the weight of its words hung in the air like a cloud of ominous anticipation. I swallowed hard, trying to shake the unease creeping up my spine. Who was that voice? Who had spoken to me? And why did I feel like I was being drawn into something much larger than myself? With a final glance at the map, I knew what I had to do. The location of the station of the true heart of the Alliance was clear. If I wanted answers, if I wanted to understand the significance of the ring, of the outpost, I would have to go there. The black hole, the center of it all. But it wasn't going to be easy. The journey to that station would be perilous. No sane person would attempt to approach a black hole, let alone navigate one. The risks were astronomical, and yet, there was no choice. I could feel it in my gut, the undeniable pull of destiny. Chapter 3. The Path Forward. The decision to venture toward the black hole wasn't an easy one. The risks were massive, the stakes higher than anything I had ever encountered. But there was no turning back now. I had uncovered too much, and the call of the unknown was far too strong to ignore. I had the ring, and I had the map. The path was laid out before me. The first thing I did was prepare my ship, the only vessel I had for such a venture. It was a standard exploration-class ship, small and nimble, perfect for deep space missions. But a mission into the event horizon of a black hole? That was an entirely different kind of challenge. I ran every calculation I could, double-checking the ship's systems, recalibrating the shields, and ensuring the engines could handle the gravitational forces that would be at play. If I was going to make it anywhere near the black hole, I would need the best of the best. I contacted a few trusted engineers, those who knew how to modify ships for extreme conditions, but no one had experience with anything like this. The black hole was beyond even their understanding. Still, I couldn't afford to wait for permission from the authorities. This was my decision, and I would see it through. For days, I worked tirelessly, upgrading the ship's shielding and propulsion systems, and installing an experimental gravimetric stabilizer to withstand the intense forces. The outpost had provided plenty of tech, though most of it was ancient and no longer functioning. But I had managed to scrounge together enough resources to make the necessary upgrades. It wasn't perfect, but it would have to do. There was no time for second-guessing. As I suited up and made final preparations, the question lingered in the back of my mind. What was waiting for me at the center of the black hole? I had no answers, no clear understanding of what the station was, or who had built it. The map had been clear, but it offered no further explanations. The message had been cryptic, and the voice, whoever it was, had left more questions than answers. But I had no choice. I had to keep moving forward. There was too much at stake now. With one last glance at the outpost's dimly lit corridors, I made my way to the ship. The air was thick with anticipation. The black hole loomed ahead, its gravitational pull already tugging at my senses, pulling me toward its center. I could feel the weight of everything I had discovered bearing down on me. But I wasn't going to turn back. Not now. I had come too far. I activated the engines, and the ship powered up with a soft hum, the vibrations running through the hull. I set the course for the black hole, engaging the gravimetric stabilizer. The map on my console showed the path clearly, and the stars outside seemed to blur as the ship began its journey. The black hole's event horizon was still far away, but I could feel the space around me shifting, warping under the pull of the immense gravity. As the ship entered the first stages of the journey, the voice returned, echoing through the ship's comm system. "You are not the first, but you are the one who will succeed. Will you?" I gritted my teeth. There was no turning back. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but I was ready to face whatever came next. This was my chance to uncover the truth, to learn the secret of the Alliance and unlock its power. And with that, I set my sights on the dark unknown, my ship pushing forward into the abyss. The ship vibrated softly as the engines hummed, the gravitational forces of the black hole pulling at the very fabric of space around me. Every system on board was under strain, but the ship held steady, the stabilizers working tirelessly to keep us on course. The stars around me stretched and warped, the familiar pinpricks of light turning into streaks as the ship sped toward the event horizon. The black hole loomed larger with every passing moment, its presence impossible to ignore. The voice had disappeared again, leaving me with only the hum of the ship's systems and the distant pull of the black hole's gravity. I couldn't help but feel like I was being drawn into something far bigger than myself. It wasn't just the ring or the outpost, it was everything. The message had been clear: you are not the first, but you are the one who will succeed. It was a challenge, a test, and somehow, I knew I had to rise to it. There was no room for failure now. The closer I got, the more I could feel the ship being pushed to its limits. The shields were holding strong, but the strain was becoming palpable. I checked the readings again. Everything was in the green for now, but the gravitational forces were escalating. We were approaching the event horizon at a steady pace, and the strange energy that had pulsed from the ring earlier seemed to be intensifying. The same frequency I had felt before now thrumming through the ship's hull. I wasn't sure what would happen once we crossed into the black hole's orbit, but I had no intention of backing down. The map on the console displayed the coordinates for the station clearly, located deep within the heart of the black hole's singularity. There was no going around it. If I wanted to find out what lay at the center, I had to plunge in head first. With each passing second, the ship began to shudder, the gravimetric stabilizers fighting against the immense pressure. It was then that something unexpected happened. The ship's systems started to fail, one by one. First, the navigation controls began to glitch, then the external sensors. Finally, the lights flickered before plunging the ship into near-total darkness. The comms system buzzed with static, and my heartbeat quickened as the ship groaned under the strain. The hull creaked, the pressure becoming unbearable as the ship's integrity began to warp. I was on the verge of panic, but then the ring on my finger pulsed violently, as though it was responding to the ship's distress. A surge of energy, something both alien and familiar, coursed through my body. The controls, still malfunctioning, suddenly snapped back to life. The ship's engines roared to life again, and the dark abyss of the black hole ahead seemed to shift. Without warning, a beam of bright, emerald light shot up from the center of the black hole, piercing through the dark. The ship was pulled forward, drawn inexorably toward the heart of the cosmic singularity. In that moment, I knew there was no turning back. The ship was being guided by the same force that had led me here, the very energy that emanated from the ring. It wasn't just a tool, it was a guide, a key to unlocking what had been hidden for centuries. As the ship was pulled into the light, I braced myself for what would come next. The black hole, once a terrifying and mysterious void, now seemed less menacing, more like an ancient gateway, a door that was opening before me. Chapter 4: The Revelation. The journey through the black hole was unlike anything I could have imagined. The fabric of space seemed to twist and bend, and the ship vibrated violently, as if it were being torn apart and reassembled with every passing second. For a moment, it felt like we were trapped in a timeless void, suspended between reality and oblivion. But then, as if crossing some unseen threshold, the ship emerged into something entirely different. I gasped as the view outside the ship's cockpit window expanded into a breathtaking sight. We were no longer in the black hole. Instead, we had arrived in a vast, sprawling city that stretched out across the stars, its towering structures made of materials I couldn't even begin to identify. The architecture was unlike anything I had ever seen: smooth, flowing lines, glowing with energy, and built from metals that shimmered in hues of green and blue. The city was alive, pulsating with an energy that seemed to resonate with the ring on my finger. Before me stood the heart of the Alliance. The station was no longer a station at all. It was a living entity, an enormous structure that seemed to breathe with the energy of the universe itself. I had found the hidden hub of the ancient civilization that had built the Alliance, and in that moment, everything came rushing together. The outpost had been a beacon, a signal to guide the worthy to this place. The voice I had heard, the tests, the ring, it had all been leading me here, to the epicenter of a galactic force that had remained hidden from the universe for millennia. As I approached the central chamber of the station, the doors parted, and I was greeted by a group of beings unlike any I had ever seen. They were tall, their bodies shimmering with the same ethereal glow as the station itself. Their eyes, deep and ancient, regarded me with an intensity that seemed to pierce through my very soul. One of them stepped forward, its voice carrying an ancient resonance that vibrated in my bones. "You have arrived, the one chosen to reclaim the lost Alliance. You are the bridge between the past and the future, the one who will unlock the legacy of the stars." The weight of the words settled over me, and for the first time, I understood. The ring was not just a key, it was a symbol, a marker for those who were worthy to lead, to reclaim the power of the forgotten Alliance and restore it to the galaxy. "The time has come," the being continued, "to take your place among us. The galaxy will never be the same." With that, the ring began to glow brighter than ever before, its energy connecting with the station's core, lighting up the entire city. It was as if I had become part of something far greater, a living, breathing force that would shape the future of the galaxy. The Alliance, once thought lost, was now reborn through me. I had come to the outpost seeking profit and a simple investment. But in the end, I had found something much greater, an ancient, hidden power, and with it, the opportunity to change everything. The path ahead was unclear, but I knew one thing. This was just the beginning. The Alliance was awakening, and I had a role to play in its future. The stars themselves were calling, and I was ready to answer.